Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of California Saltwater Fishing. Thanks so much for joining us, and if you're new to the channel, thanks for checking it out for the first time. Here we are at beautiful H&M Landing in San Diego, California. Once again, joining the Ranger 85, this time on a 2.5-day trip. The trip started just to the east of Catalina Island, which is a good 100 or so nautical miles to the north of Point Loma, where we left in San Diego. A bit of a long drive, just north of San Clemente Island, but south of Santa Barbara Island, so a ways out there. They'd been seeing some bluefin tuna popping up, seeing more than catching. Stuff on the sonar was popping up. We were seeing some foamers, some activity on the surface, and tried as hard as we could to get some tuna on the boat. Here's one of our lucky anglers, one of 3 folks that was able to tie into one of these bluefin and land it. I think that there was a total of 5 hookups, but out of the 5, only 3 were able to bring them on the boat. So it was a pretty long day, a lot of boating around and not a lot of catching of fish. The crew tried their hardest, but they just weren't biting, and this is something we've been hearing for the past month or so on the reports, is that the bluefin were there, but just not biting. I guess they were hoping that today was the day that things were going to change, and it was good for a few folks, but for the other group of us on the boat, we were just pretty much sitting around and enjoying a beautiful boat ride. As you can see, nice glassy conditions, no wind, no seas. Everything was nice and calm out there. The second day, we motored back down towards Mexico in the night, covered those 100 miles that we took to get up towards the Channel Islands and a little bit extra to get down off the coast of Ensenada. So we went from temperatures in the water of the low 60s to now the upper 60s, low 70s, and you could feel the air felt different, a lot more humid, a lot more tropical, and something about it made you feel that there was a lot more opportunity. Here's the first bonita that came up on the trolling rods. We were getting into some action early in the day. As soon as we set the trolling rods in the water, we were already getting some of the first bonita coming up. And as you can see, pretty good size fish coming out here from the open waters off the coast of northern Baja. It was a good way to get the blood going again, especially after spending the first day just kind of sitting around not doing too much, but that's bluefin fishing for you. We were all very happy on the boat to get down south towards the kelp paddies because everybody had been hearing great reports about kelp paddy yellowtail, dorado, and lots of other action going on down there. So definitely a different vibe on the boat. The second day, people were pretty stoked to be here and happy not to be up north trying for the elusive bluefin. And there were a few dorado, as I mentioned, that came overboard or over the rail. The first one was this nice, beautiful bull dorado that showed up on the troll. Nice, beautiful fish. If I can get around this guy to get a good pic of it. So there you go. There you see it. Nice fish. And that definitely got people real excited. On one of the first kelp paddies that we came across, we were already getting into some action. One of the nice fellows from over there at Seeker Rods, I believe his name was Fred, passed me off his pole to give it a try and see what I thought of the Seeker Rod. Big fan of their products, can't say enough good things about them. And here I am trying my luck at one of the mid-size yellowtail that were coming up. You know, typically when you're working kelp paddies, you come across these smaller fish, things that are, in the range of, a few pounds at best. But most of our fish were at least 5 pounds, if not, 10-pound class, some getting into the 20, 25-pound class. So good size, good quality of fish that were coming through. And the earlier bites were a little bit more chaotic as guys were very amped up, lots of adrenaline flowing, lots of eagerness to get these fish on the boat, especially after spending the first day not doing too much. And here I passed the rod back to Fred so I could get around all these fellas to get over to the fish that had been gaffed and brought on the boat. As you can see, one of the guys kept it from falling over the side again. Got a hold of that fish and took it up to the bow. And once I got up to the bow, I could see that there was plenty of action going on up there. One of the guys that I met on the trip, this nice kid named Alec, actually got a really solid yellowtail fishing the surface iron off of the bow. He was doing a great job taking some numbers down up there. And the story just continued throughout the day. It was beautiful action. Every kelp paddy that we came across was either getting hits right away or there was nobody at home. And that's typically the way that it goes with this kelp paddy stuff. You got to be ready to move fast. And if the kelp paddy's not working right away, it's probably not going to be working at all. So the boat was a little bit loaded up, a little bit more than most of us would have liked. There were, instead of 29 folks as they were originally scheduled to be, there was 33 anglers on the boat. So a bit crowded for the Ranger 85, probably the most crowded I've ever seen it. And that made for interesting action for sure. One thing I do like to try to do with these yellowtail and other game fish is get them away from the stern. You want to try to get them up towards the bow where you have a better chance, even if they are trying to run around the point where the anchor is. And you got to communicate with your fellow anglers, letting them know that you're going under, going over, doing what you got to do, especially if they're also hooked up too, because the last thing you want to do is get hopelessly tangled up or saw somebody off in the process. It's really not fun. And remember, we're out here to have a good time, fellas, so make sure that you're acting accordingly and being courteous as possible, breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth, and just trying to take it calm. I know the blood is flowing, but make sure that you do the right thing and listen to the deckhands. And here we go with one of the deckhands taking care of a nice gaff for me. Put the line in the free spool, keep your thumb on it, and drop the fish on the wood. So it's all good at that point. So now we're seeing a nice, beautiful yellowtail that came up from that. In total, on the yellowtail, I was able to pull in 9 fish. And I didn't record every battle. I was only able to record 3 or 4 of these. Yep. And there you can hear the drag taking off quite a bit. Some of these fish were real fighters. And even on 40-pound Spectra, they were given a really good fight. This one had me go from basically the stern all the way up to the bow. And I can't say enough good things about this rod combo that I'm working with, the black steel Seeker rod with the Avet JX reel. Beautiful combination, working perfectly for me this year. This rod has been blessed, knock on wood, that doesn't change. I've landed bluefin, halibut, white sea bass, and now yellowtail, as well as some other beautiful rockfish and other beautiful fish with this rod this year. It's definitely paid for itself. Can't say enough good things about it. One thing, though, that I am going to change is that the moss green Spectra, I get it. I've gotten comments about how awful it is, and I do agree. Not necessarily sure why I ended up buying it. Maybe it was on sale or something like that, but I am going to swap it out for some bright white Spectra. Also 40-pound. Keep my 40-pound gear on here going. I think that's a good setup for this combo. And switch it out so that it's easier to see the line in the water, because this stuff just blends right into the water and it's almost impossible to see. And I did have a nice tip of 40-pound fluorocarbon. Whoa, there we go. Some more action with the fish pulling as we're getting closer to the boat. And I had a nice Seagore fluorocarbon 40-pound. I think that this was the Blue Label stuff. So that's pretty good for the live bait because it's a little more flexible than the Gold Label. I like the Gold Label for jigging, things where you might want to keep the line a little more rigid. But when you're working with live bait, fly lining it and just letting it run, that blue label stuff is a little bit softer and allows the bait to swim a little more freely. And I was also using circle hooks. I know some guys like the J hook with the yellowtail. Personally, I like the circle hook for most fish that I go after, whether it's tuna or rockfish, whatever. It has a nice way of setting right in the corner of the mouth, and it doesn't get swallowed into their gut, and then you end up losing the fish because the teeth cut through the leader. This way it's just metal on the lip. And here comes Dom, one of the awesome deckhands of the Ranger 85, doing some great gaff work for me as the fish was trying to swim under the boat and get away, but we weren't going to let that happen. So here it comes around again, using the rail for a little bit more leverage. Dom hits it beautifully, pulls it up over for me, and that's one of the nicer fish that I had on the trip. That's for sure. That one's closer into the 20-25 poundish range. Beautiful fish. Take it on a little sleigh ride up to the bow, up to the kill box. As you can see, bloody decks, good sign of some hard work being put in by all up here. And a nice big box of fish. And the hits just keep on coming. Sorry for the whoa, some good action there. Sorry for the water on the lens. As I said, things were pretty fast and furious when they were happening, so you're getting water kind of sprayed all over. Also, the humidity down there was pretty intense, so things were not drying off as quickly as you would like them to.
Coming down.
And once again, trying to get this fish up to the bow and away from as many folks as possible.
Coming down, thinking over you.
But it looks like a lot of other guys had the same idea. This fella here with the red hat actually did pull in some kelp, as well as the guy next to me had a fish wrapped up in the kelp. And that's part of what happens when you're fishing kelp paddies, just by the nature of the beast, right? You're gonna run into some kelp just because that's what you're fishing off of. These fish in the open ocean out here will look for the kelp baddies, congregate underneath them, wait for the bait to swim by, and that's your marker for, where you can typically find the fish. So yep, there you see the fella to the right of me has a yellowtail tied up in the kelp as I'm trying to go over him.
Go over me.
Gets a little dicey at times, that's for sure. That's where you want the deckhands to come in and help you out, and gets a little close for comfort. But everybody understands we're just fishing, just trying to get around and get by. And yeah, was able to navigate both of those guys. And as you know, the yellowtail will sometimes swim in these sorts of circles, especially as they start getting tired, which makes it, harder to navigate them. But you got to sometimes let them run a little bit, let them get themselves tired, get them up to the boat, and adjust your drags accordingly. In the beginning, it's good to have the drag a little bit looser, let them run a bit, and then tighten up as you go along. Try to get them, closer to the boat and just really leverage that gear that you're working with. As I mentioned, most of my fish were caught on this 40-pound setup. I did manage to get one on my 20-pound setup when there was just a bite that was a little bit tougher to get, and I was able to snag one on the boat with the 20-pound setup. Once I landed them, got them on the boat, that was with a J hook. They actually swallowed the hook, and once he got on the boat, the hook came off on the boat, luckily at least. But I did manage to get them on there, and after that I just stayed on the 40-pound just because it made it that much easier with that much more leverage to get them on the boat. And I also stuck with my circle hook setup just because that tended to work best. And one thing that you want to do when you're out here fishing these yellowtails, some good tips are get a nice lively bait. Make sure that you shop around, especially when there's plenty of bait in the wells. You want to make sure that you get a bait that's in good shape, that's hard to catch in the well, that's not floating upside down or swimming weird, that's got most of its scales, doesn't have too many red spots on it, doesn't have a red nose, looks like it's, ready to get out there and run for you. And once you get that bait in the water, you may need to move it around a bit to make sure that it swims the right direction. Keep a good eye on which direction it's going. And if it's not swimming directly away from the boat, pull it back out, get it back on the surface again, and try to, encourage it to get away from the boat. And if it's just swimming in circles, or it's not going anywhere, or it's floating upside down and it's just kind of just sitting there, or just trying to constantly go under the boat, just get another bait. Go back to the well, take that one off, get a new one. Or if it's been out there soaking for a minute or two, get another bait. So don't be shy to constantly change your baits. I know later in the trip we were running out of bait, so we didn't have as much of that luxury, but earlier on, as much as possible, you're going to want to keep your bait as fresh as possible, because these yellowtail love a nice lively bait, and that's what attracts them to make the bite. Oh, so there you see the fish in the water coming by for the gaff, and our buddy Dom once again on the gaff is able to get it in the boat for us. And then we dropped it into free spool, kept thumb on the spool, walked up with the fish, and there we go. Another beautiful yellowtail meets the wood. So can't complain at all. And here I got an interesting shot of one of the deckhands trying to help this fella gaff his fish. I think this is the first time I've actually seen a deckhand drop a gaff in the water. Luckily for him, they're made out of bamboo and they float really well. But rather than going for the fish, he ended up going for the gaff, trying to get it on board. You can understand you don't want to lose the gaff, but the gaff will float while the fish will swim away. So he did go back for the fish and then went and got the gaff after he got the fish back on the boat. These things happen.
Nice.
And there's me with a piece of toilet paper, of all things, stuck to my leader, and the fish that came up with it. No, the toilet paper was not the bait. And there is a picture of that fish in particular. And here is another fish from earlier in the day. So looking good, a little bloody, but looking very good. As you can see, we were putting in some work that day. So it was beautiful, beautiful sunset on our way back in, and a beautiful rainbow to greet us on our way back towards Point Loma. And then as the sun went down, the deckhands pulled out some of the fish from the holds so we could get a good pick. So I hope you enjoyed this trip. I hope you enjoyed what you were seeing out there. And hopefully I can see some of you guys out on the water. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and share with your friends. And if you have any questions or anything, feel free to send me a comment, and we'll take it from there. Tight lines, my friends, and see you soon.